Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, what's happening? Back with a quick video. So, yeah, let's talk about the Canelo Alvarez-Gennady Golovkin third fight that's happening this Saturday, so in a couple of days. As I record this, this is Thursday night, and I wasn't actually going to make a video tonight, but the reason I am is because it actually just kind of dawned on me that this fight is happening this weekend. For whatever reason, this fight went completely over my head, like I actually almost forgot it was happening, and one of the things I was thinking about just now, just before I start this video, is that when I really think about it, there hasn't really been a whole lot of hype, there hasn't really been a whole lot of promotion, and there doesn't appear to be a whole lot of interest in this fight. I don't know if a lot of you guys have noticed this, but as far as I'm concerned, I just don't see anywhere near the kind of intrigue or the kind of excitement that the first two fights had. You know, going into the first fight, that was hyped up as the biggest fight in boxing. And in many ways, the second fight was even bigger because people were so kind of infuriated or relieved by the controversy in the first fight. So they really wanted to see the second fight. And of course, there was a lot of drama with the drug test and, you know, issues on the outside of the ring, what each guy was saying to each other. And yeah, there was a lot of pride at stake, and there was just this whole culture war that was developing in regards to that second fight. But I've noticed when in regards to this third fight, there doesn't seem to be the same buzz. There doesn't seem to be the same excitement or interest, and there appears to be, from what I've seen at least, and maybe I just haven't really been paying attention. But there hasn't really been a lot of promotion for the fight, at least not compared to the first two, like I said. I know that the first two fights were, of course, on HBO, and, you know, HBO hyped the absolute crap out of them, whereas DAZN doesn't seem to be, you know, they don't seem to be very good at promoting fights, but whatnot. I digress. Let's talk about the fight anyway. So, it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to make a confident pick here because, like I said, I've not really been thinking about the fight. Usually when I make predictions for fights, I've really thought about them, I've really pondered them, and I've gone back and looked at footage and stuff like that, and it's been quite a while since I watched a Triple G fight. I saw the highlights of the fight against the Japanese guy, Ryota Murata. I didn't actually watch that full fight, I just saw highlights of it, and Triple G, you know, he looked like Triple G. Strong, powerful, heavy-handed, great chin, great persistence, you know, applying relentless pressure, great jab, great accuracy, and some very good, well-rounded boxing skills. But he looked to be significantly slowed down, and he didn't look to be as explosive or as fast or as just relentless as he used to be. You know, Triple G in his prime was relentless. He was a guy who was constantly coming forward, constantly walking you down, constantly feinting, constantly probing. You know, great lead hand control, very good at splitting your guard. You know, great foot speed. Actually, I know that he had a reputation of being a plodder, but if you actually look at Triple G's feet, he was very, very light on his feet. You know, gliding around the ring, stepping off the line. You know, just a really fluid fighter. You know, just an all round boxer puncher. You know, who had that Mexican come forward style and kind of blended his sort of natural European boxing fundamentals with that style. And in his prime, he was phenomenal with it. You know, one of the best middleweights of all time, in my opinion. But in the Murata fight, what I saw a guy who's still pretty much the same in terms of his overall just faculties and his overall fighting style, but he just doesn't have that same level of intensity, if you know what I mean. Now, the first two fights, you guys know my views on them. Look, the first fight was essentially an embarrassment. It was like a man against a boy. Triple G absolutely dominated the fight. But the problem is that Canelo Alvarez is such a big name in the sport that it was as if Triple G just didn't want to hurt him. So he was letting him off the hook at every opportunity. I mean, there were ample times in that first fight where he could have gotten Canelo out of there. Canelo was running for dear life. He was completely out of gas by the third round. He was up on the ropes, completely defenseless, completely clueless about what to do, about how to stop the onslaught. And Triple G, when he's in a real fight, you know, when he's actually trying to knock his opponent out, you know, he would be mixing it up. He would be throwing hooks to the body. You know, he'd be throwing that hook over the top of your guard that lands on the side of your temple or on the top of your forehead, and you know, he'd be really putting everything behind those punches, if you know what I mean. You know, he'd just be throwing everything at Canelo, trying to get him out of there, because there was really no threat from Canelo. He couldn't hurt Triple G. You know, Triple G's chin was too strong. Canelo's not really that big a puncher by middleweight standards. You know, I mean, he couldn't even hurt welterweights. So yeah, it was a mismatch. But the problem is, like I said, Triple G just, for whatever reason, call me a cynic, he didn't seem to want to. He didn't seem to want to win, or it's as if he wanted to win, but he didn't want to win conclusively. So yeah, he shot himself in the foot there, but he got paid very well. Then of course they had the rematch, and the rematch was a very, very different fight. It was like the complete opposite of the first fight. It was the same in terms of who was in control, but the overall tone of the fight and just the styles that both guys brought to the table was very different. In the first fight, it was Triple G on the front foot all night, applying pressure, cutting off the ring, and looking to make a fight of it, and really just being the aggressor all night, the effective aggressor, and the ring general, just controlling everything. In the second fight, however, it was actually Canelo who was the aggressor. It was him who came forward, and it was Canelo who wanted to make a fight of it, and it was him who was really chasing the fight, whereas it was Golovkin kind of on the back foot, trying to be the slickster, trying to be the boxer. And Triple G, just like in the first fight, in the second fight, even though he was the guy retreating, he was the guy on the back foot, he still clearly won the fight. He landed many more punches. He actually threw many more punches despite backing up. And many of his punches were jabs. But he was really committing to the jab in the second fight. And he hurt Canelo quite badly a couple of times in the second fight. And everything was set up by that jab and his long-range boxing. And it makes you wonder if going into the third fight, assuming this is a real fight, of course, but because I'll get to that in a minute, but it really makes you wonder, are we going to get the Triple G from the first fight stylistically, or are we going to get the Triple G from the second fight? As for Canelo, after a string of obvious dives against the likes of Callum Smith, Sergey Kovalev, Avni Yildirim and whatnot, you know, guys just, Caleb Plant, you know, showing up and not even really trying to win, you know, just there for the payday, essentially. You know, a $10 million payday is more than enough for most fringe contenders or sort of fringe world level guys to do as they're told and read the script. But going into this fight, it's interesting because Canelo, of course, in his last fight, they really threw us a curveball, didn't they? Because in his last fight, he actually lost, and he got utterly schooled and dominated and lost every single round clearly to the Russian Dmitry Bivol. Now, what's interesting about it, though, and what kind of has me concerned, is that Bivol basically did what Triple G did in the first two fights, and that is that he beat Canelo, and he beat Canelo convincingly. But what he didn't do was he didn't show a desire to win conclusively. Bivol didn't push for the stoppage. He wasn't really throwing the kind of combinations you would expect him to throw. He wasn't throwing the kind of combinations and the kind of punches that he usually throws, where he punches through the target, where he's very snappy, throws extremely hard, fast, straight punches, and he does that all night. He's got relentless stamina, and you know, he's a guy who's a great finisher. Looks just as great in the 12th round as he does in the first. In the Canelo fight, we didn't really see that. He was winning the fight, but he wasn't going for it. He wasn't going to try and really upset the party and really stamp his authority and be the bigger man and force a stoppage. It was as if Bivol was just there to get the win, and that was it, you know. And that makes me concerned because it's a consistent pattern that we've seen with Canelo. Guys are able to hit him. They're allowed to, you know, they're able to outbox him. They're maybe even allowed to win. But what they're not allowed to do is they're not allowed to damage him. You know, Canelo's a guy who is a pale, ginger, white boy who definitely marks up easy. I mean, the guy's got a chin, don't get me wrong, he can take a punch, but he gets marked up and cut up quite easily when you actually lay into him, when you actually hit him. You know, go and watch his fights against, like, Shane Mosley, for example, or the second Triple G fight. But for whatever reason, guys don't really try to inflict any damage. They don't really try to go out and they don't try to put a convincing beating on him, and if you're not going to lay a convincing beating on Canelo, then in most cases you're not going to get the decision. So going into this fight, I find it very hard to believe that we're going to get a drastically different outcome from the first two. I think if I was forced to make a prediction here, I'd say that it's going to be similar to the second fight. I think Triple G is going to try and just box, use the jab. He's going to pity pat, and he's probably going to outbox Canelo here and there, but Canelo's going to land the more eye-catching punches this time, and I think he's going to throw like fast bursts, fast combinations, and I think Canelo's probably going to win on points. I don't know if it'll be a clear victory, but I think this time it will be a genuine win. Like the first two fights weren't genuine wins, they were flat out robberies. This time, I think it may be controversial, but I think it's going to be a genuine win in the sense that you could genuinely make the argument that he won. So yeah, I'm going to go with Canelo by unanimous decision in a competitive fight, but a genuine win. But an issue I have is, again, Triple G probably isn't going to go out on his shield. He probably isn't going to go for the stoppage, which I'm sure he knows he needs to win the fight, because they're not going to let Canelo lose a decision to a 40-year-old man. That'll be an absolute embarrassment for the entire machine in boxing if that happens. So if this is a real fight, I expect to see Triple G go out on his shield, and I expect to see him committing to his punches and trying to land his jab with regularity and trying to throw things off the jab, throw a right uppercut on the inside, throw that left hook to the body, throw combinations and try and force a stoppage. I expect to see the kind of tenacity and the kind of aggressiveness, the aggressive counterpunching style that we saw in the Rail to Murata fight. I expect to see that from Triple G, and if I don't, I know this is a fixed fight. I can't see Canelo stopping Triple G legitimately. If Canelo stops Triple G, let's say if that happens, especially if he does it early, if he just goes out there and blasts him out of there, then in my opinion it's a blatant fix, because nobody has even come close to even seriously hurting Triple G. Triple G's never been stopped. He's never been dropped, amateur or pro, as far as I'm aware, and he's fought significantly bigger men and significantly bigger punchers than Canelo. So I don't see Canelo stopping Triple G. If he does, then it's probably a fixed fight. Obviously, I'd have to look at it first and see, but that's just how I see it, man. So yeah, I'm going to go with Canelo by a close, competitive, but genuine, and I guess maybe a clear unanimous decision. I think it's going to be close. Like I said, it's going to be competitive, but I'm going to go with Canelo by unanimous decision this time. Let me know what you guys think anyway. Yeah, stay tuned for more videos. Thanks for watching. God bless.